In 2 Timothy chapter 1, the Apostle Paul begins verse 9 by reminding Timothy that God has saved us and has called us to a holy life. And it's this being called to a holy life that I briefly want to talk about. Call to be holy is an unmistakable theme throughout the entire New Testament. To be holy, well, it's expected of the Christian. It's just given. Just as a school teacher is called to teach, a firefighter is called to put out fires, a police officer is called to uphold the law, so the Christian is called to be holy. It's simply not optional. For example, in 1 Peter 1:14-16, as obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance. But just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all that you do. For it is written, be holy, because I am holy. 1 Thessalonians 4:7, for God did not call us to be impure, but to live a holy life. So clearly, the Christian who has been saved by God's grace has also been called to live a holy life. Timothy couldn't claim to have been saved and then thought he could live any way he pleased. Timothy was called to live a life that was separate and distinct from the immoral values of his Greco-Roman culture. Now, did that mean that henceforth Paul expected Timothy to live a sinless life? Of course not. That's impossible this side of heaven. Only Christ lived a sinless life. For the rest of us, it's a daily struggle between doing what we know we ought to do versus what we know we shouldn't be doing. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. So if holiness is so important, why then do we hear so little about it from our pulpits today? Well, multiple reasons. One can be traced back to the mid-20th century when holiness became associated with legalism, self-righteousness, moralism, judgmentalism, because of the unfortunate aftermath of what was called the holiness movement. Then there's the fact that we live in a secular age, a secular culture that worships moral relativism. And last but not least, it comes down to human nature. Let's face it, it's a lot more appealing, a lot more exciting to live by our baser instincts than to restrain them. So while there is no single reason, the net effect is still the same. When there is no clarion call from the pulpit for God's people to be holy, then you end up with the modern church, where many now assume that the calling of the Christian is to be more inclusive, to love everyone and never judge, which is the complete opposite of holiness. I say that because holiness is by its very nature exclusive. And while, of course, we're called to love everyone, holiness, though, makes the distinction between loving the sinner and hating the sin. And of course, while judgmentalism is wrong, holiness demands that we make judgment calls between good and evil, between what is holy and what is unholy. Please subscribe for more content like this.